Have you ever felt a kind of exhaustion that sleep just doesn't seem to touch? It's that quiet, deep-seated weariness that just hangs around. Well, today, we're going to gently unpack that feeling and really rethink what it means to rest. So let's start with a feeling that I think a lot of us know all too well. You know the one. You get a full night's sleep, maybe you even sleep in, but you wake up feeling like you've barely recharged. If that sounds familiar, I just want you to know you're definitely not alone. It's an incredibly common experience, and it usually points to something much deeper than just being physically tired.
I want you to really let that sink in for a moment. Seriously. In our culture that just glorifies being busy all the time, it's so easy to label this feeling as laziness or, some kind of personal failure. But the truth is, what you're feeling has a name, and it is absolutely not a character flaw. That's it. It's not about a lack of willpower or motivation. It's about a lack of resources. You're experiencing a completely legitimate state of exhaustion. And just understanding that, well, that's the first real step toward doing something about it. So, what is this invisible fatigue that sleep can't seem to fix? It goes by a few different names, but a really key concept to get our heads around is something called the mental load that we're all carrying. What's so interesting about this idea is how it frames what our brain is doing all day. Think of your brain like a computer's processor. Every little decision, every plan you make, every single worry, it's like a program running in the background. It's the constant, invisible work of just managing life, and it consumes a huge amount of our energy. And when that cognitive processor gets overloaded, these are the warning signs. It's that brain fog that makes your thoughts feel fuzzy, the struggle to focus on just one thing, feeling emotionally raw and irritable for no real reason. It's that moment when picking something for dinner feels like the hardest decision in the world. This isn't you failing. This is your system telling you it's running on empty.
Now, to better understand how we can manage this finite energy, there's this brilliant metaphor that has helped so many people make sense of it all. It's called the spoon theory.
The concept, which comes from Christine Mizarandino, is so simple, but it's really profound. The idea is that every day you wake up with a set number of spoons. That's your energy for the day. You can't get more until you rest. And every single thing you do, big or small, costs you at least one spoon.
This shows you just how quickly those spoons can disappear, right? Just getting out of bed, that's a spoon. Taking a shower? That could be 2. Making breakfast might cost you 3, depending on the day. And here's the kicker. Unlike money, you can't borrow spoons from tomorrow. Once they're gone for the day, they're gone.
And that's exactly why some days feel so different from others. On a spoon-rich day, you might have the energy to work, exercise, see some friends. You feel great. But on a spoon-poor day, just taking a shower might be the main event. And you know what? That is perfectly okay. The goal isn't always to have more spoons, but to manage the ones you have with kindness and awareness.
Okay, so if we're running out of spoons and sleep isn't enough to refill our drawer, what's the solution? Well, this brings us to a really crucial idea. True rest is so much more complex than we've been led to believe. Honestly, this might be the most important takeaway here. We have been taught our whole lives that sleep is the ultimate reset button. But if you are mentally, emotionally, or socially drained, sleep alone is not going to fix it. It's like you're trying to recharge the wrong battery.
Researchers have actually identified 7 distinct types of rest that we need to really function well. And as we look at this list, physical, mental, sensory, creative, emotional, social, and spiritual, you might already feel a little spark of recognition. Maybe you can pinpoint an area that you've been neglecting. This is all about taking a much more holistic view of our own recovery.
So, mental rest is about giving your mind a real break. And no, that doesn't mean just scrolling on your phone. It means quiet. It means turning off the notifications, taking a walk without a podcast playing, and just letting your thoughts settle without constantly feeding them new information.
Social rest is another huge piece of the puzzle. It's about recognizing which people and which interactions drain your energy versus which ones fill you up. Sometimes it means choosing solitude. And it doesn't stop there. We also need sensory rest, a break from bright lights and constant noise. Or creative rest, which isn't about being productive, but just about appreciating beauty, like listening to music or walking in nature. You see how it's all connected? A really practical way to start building these different types of rest into your day is with microbricks. You know that moment in the afternoon when you feel your focus fading? Don't just push through with more coffee. Step away. A 15-minute break where you just sit in silence, listen to some calm music, or even just look out a window can be way more restorative than an extra hour of restless sleep later on.
Now, we have to talk about the huge emotional barrier that stops us from taking this rest we so clearly need. It's that nagging feeling that we should be doing something productive instead. Yeah, let's talk about guilt.
This quote just captures that feeling perfectly, doesn't it? Your body's finally still, but your mind is just racing, running through the to-do list. And that completely defeats the purpose. The guilt actually cancels out the recovery.
So here's a wonderfully simple little trick to outsmart that feeling. Treat rest like a task. Literally schedule 15 minutes of quiet time in your calendar. Put it on your to-do list. This satisfies that part of your brain that needs to feel productive. And then, when the time is up, you get the satisfaction of checking it off. Mission accomplished.
When you start to put all these pieces together, it leads to this really fundamental shift in how we view our energy, our worth, and our own well-being.
This is the radical truth at the heart of everything we've talked about. We have to unlearn the idea that rest is just the absence of work. It is not. Rest is the work of recovery, of repair, of integration. Real growth doesn't just happen when you're hustling. It happens when you give yourself the space to recover from the hustle. So this is the journey we've been on. We've shifted our language from laziness to exhaustion. We've expanded our view from just sleep to a holistic idea of rest. We've moved our focus from performance to a practice of self-compassion. And finally, we've reframed rest itself, seeing it not as a guilty pleasure, but as a genuine necessity.
I'll just leave you with that thought. In a world that is constantly demanding more and more from you, maybe the most radical and truly productive thing you can do is to finally give yourself permission to just stop, to truly, deeply, and unapologetically rest.